Sorry about that, folks. If you were following along, where you're back, technical difficulties. Blame Tanner. So
one of the buffoons.
Yes, he lost connection and made us lose our whole broadcast. But we're talking with Jackie and Will of Redbird Red Zone podcast. We were talking about this Kyler Murray. That's what I was talking about. The 4-hour window. I don't think he's Michael Vick. I think he's Michael Vick, not Jamarcus Russell. And I was asking, is he like Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron Rodgers, even Tom Brady, can remember plays that happened 5 years ago? I know Kyler hasn't been in the league, but does he come across as that type of a quarterback to you guys?
Absolutely, but more in terms of competitiveness. Like, he's just got this edge to him. You know, he's the most winningest quarterback in Texas high school history. He's very competitive in everything he does, whether it's football, baseball, and even professional gaming. So I think. Oh, go ahead.
I think that every good athlete has to be a sociopath in order to succeed.
That is true. If
you don't have this inhuman urge to compete, you're not going to make it. At least not in the way that the greats do. And I think Kyler Murray has that urge to compete that so few athletes really have. But he is that guy.
But does he though? Because I mean, he's a pro gamer. He's already flirted with this whole baseball thing. I mean,
he's a Renaissance man. He's a real Renaissance man.
What happens this year if the Cardinals absolutely just crap the bed here? Like, is it going to be on Kyler? Is that going to be on Kingsbury? Like, who's going to take the fall?
Kingsbury.
There is one person in this equation who has this history of failing upward, and that's Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury has failed down the stretch in every single year he's coached for the past 11 years. The fact that he still has a job is just baffling to me, and I don't get why we kept him and why we signed him for such a long extension.
I get why he has a job and he can be fired at any point of that extension.
Oh yeah.
But he's going to be more on the hot seat, if anything, than Kyler.
But I think you put a fire under his ass before you give him an extension. That's what I think they should have done.
Well, yeah, true. I do agree with that. That I think that Kyler's extension should have came before his and Keim.
Yeah. The ultimate goal is obviously for those two to be together for the next 10 years. So, that's what you want is a great quarterback and head coach combination. Most of the greats, that's what they've done. Like, looking at Andy and Patrick, obviously, Brady and Belichick, things like that. Like, you just want that sustainability over the course of a long time with your quarterback and head coach. So, honestly, if Kingsbury looks bad, it's probably going to be because the product on the field sucks. And you got to hope it's not going to be because of Kyler Murray. That's going to be your leader for the next, 12 years.
I think Kyler Murray's like a just general room this year of, his suite of receivers and tight ends is probably the best he's had in a hot minute. Having both Hollywood Brown and D-Hop on either end of the field, plus 3 tight ends who could really light it ablaze. We're not going to have Max Williams for a hot minute, but as soon as he gets back, we got ourselves a good blocking tight end. Zach Ertz had the most tight end yards for us since the fucking 80s, despite playing half a season. And Trey McBride, I've been hearing Kittle comparisons for him, and that's always a good sign. So Kyler Murray's got a stacked room this year. I think we're gonna see him possibly succeed this year. It's all up to him.
There's no excuse for it, that's for sure.
So you guys think the offense looks any different this year? Just looking at the backfield, you guys added Darrell Williams, and I'm curious to see kind of how this thing unfolds for this team. And obviously Hollywood Brown is going to be a great deep threat for the team. But are they going to be getting back to any kind of running game from the running backs, or is it still going to be, Kyler running the ball 100 times a year?
I think that the 1-2 punch of James Conner and I guess either Darrell Williams or Benjamin will still be a solid rushing attack, but I don't think we're going to have quite the peak that we had last year with and Conner splitting downs. I am excited to see what they do with it though.
It's going to be different for sure. We lost Chase Edmonds, who was a very good patch catching running back. And then him and Conner had kind of different play styles. So, but the tandem worked really well. So we'll see if Darrell Williams can come in and, pick up where Chase Edmonds left off in that tandem sense. But hopefully Kyler doesn't have to run the ball as much.
What do you guys make of Darrell Williams?
I like Darrell. I mean, yeah, being obviously a fan of the Chiefs and watching Williams the last couple of years, I've really liked him as far as on a down-to-down production standpoint. When you look at his yards per carry, it's not as pretty as you want it to be, but the guy was actually productive and actually had really, really good hands too. So for being a fullback-looking guy, the guy made great catches. I mean, he was reliable. I trusted him over anybody else in the backfield last year. So, I mean, and that even includes Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know obviously Clyde had injury concerns, but I think Darrell's just kind of, what you're going to get, and he's reliable. I think you're going to like him quite a bit, but I mean, he's not as good as James Conner, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're not.
Right.
I think he is very much the third down guy. So I think
he's different than Edmonds, of course. I mean, totally different styles, but he still works. He can make it work. He's not going to, go 50 yards, but he's going to get you chunks of 10 to 15 consistently.
I can live with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Ryan, what's your take on Mr. Williams?
Can't hear your mic's cut.
Your mic's cut. Your mic's cut. Gosh.
He has nothing to say.
Nothing. All right.
He's speechless. He loves him.
Still can't, bro. Still can't. All right. Hey, I got a couple follow-up questions and we'll get you out of here. So with it seemed like after last year when D-Hop went out, that offense fell apart. Is now with D-Hop suspended 6 games and bringing in Hollywood Brown and Randall the Handle Sports from Sports Talk. He made a comment here too. Hollywood had 91 receptions, 108 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, is he going to yeah, thanks. Is he going to fill? I told you I can't read. Is he going to fill in for D-Hop and be that guy so this offense can keep clicking? Or
I think for the first 6 weeks he's going to be that guy. I mean, him and Kyler have that chemistry going back to the Oklahoma days, and I think that'll light a spark pretty much instantly. And once D-Hop gets back and we see the full potential of this offense, I think we're going to see something really special. This receiver room, nobody's talking about it. This is going to be a top 10 receiver room, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Hollywood Brown had to be the number 1 guy in Baltimore, so he was doing pretty decent for being a number 1. So he'll fill in right away, keep us afloat until DeAndre Hopkins gets back, and then we'll set the league on fire.
And the understanding I get with Brown in Baltimore is that he was ultimately screwed over by Roman's scheme. So I think going into a new system and going into this air raid offense will be a sort of a shot in the arm for him and just get him up and running.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's exactly why he wanted to come to Arizona. So what's your guys' expectations? I mean, this is probably the most pressure is on Kyler Murray. It's on Cliff Kingsbury. Like, they got the talent. They still, I mean, we've listed about every offensive weapon they've got, and it's scary. So what's the real expectations? Is it Super Bowl or bust, NFC Championship game, or is it, hey, just make it to the playoffs and win a game this year?
You don't want to know what I think.
No, it's make it to the playoffs and win a game. And if we make it to the NFC Championship, awesome. If we win the Super Bowl, I would die happy.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm praying for the best. I love this team, but I know what this team does to me, so I'm expecting nothing.
They're frustrating to watch because I love the talent on that team, and I loved seeing last year AJ Green come alive again. But like last 2 years ago when they went 8-8, I'm like, man, there's so much talent, and they underachieved. And then this past season, I feel like the AFC is so loaded right now. This is the chance if you're in the NFC that like you can battle with anyone. You have as good of a shot in the NFC as anybody else out there. So to me, that's the way I look at it for the Cardinal standpoint.
Yeah, the AFC is insane. Like, I was looking at that playoff picture last year, and I was like, this top to bottom, I mean, any one of these teams could make a run at it.
Oh, for sure.
NFC, you've got like what, 2 or 3 of those teams now. I mean,
right.
If the Cardinals want to get in there and stake their claim, they can. It's just they have to do it.
Yeah.
And be consistent and learn how to finish. It doesn't matter how you start; it's about how you finish.
Yeah, I think this team will get down early into the game, and then they'll just like get discouraged and take their ball and go home. I I think that this team just needs to play better when they're down, and I think that's all they really need.
Well, you got 2 wins against Seattle, right? And then I'm saying you might even get 2 against the 49ers. Now, the one that obviously the toughest one is going to be going against the Rams, and hopefully you can split with them. So that right there should be 4 or 5 wins alone. So, I mean, give you 9 wins, and you're in, I think.
Yeah, I think they got to win at least a playoff game. If they don't win a playoff game this year, it's I mean, you're going to hear a lot of they made a big mistake extending Cliff Kingsbury. So that brings me to my next question. Who's in the desert longer? Is it the GM? Is it Steve Keim? Is that how I say his name? Steve Keim. Is it Steve Keim, Cliff Kingsbury, or Kyler Murray? Who is in Arizona longer?
I'm praying. Keim. Yeah, that guy has like Epstein levels of dirt on Bidwell. He has to. There's no way he doesn't. I mean, dude, it gets pisses 3 times over the legal limit or whatever on that DOI.
Oh yeah,
keeps botching every draft class, every free agency class, and he still has a job. I don't know what it is.
It's insane.
Yeah, unfortunately, it will be Steve Keim. The year will be 2052. Steve Keim is our general manager.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All hail RoboKeim.
Mike, you got anything? You got anything else?
I mean, normally we save this for the Wednesday show that we do as far as the predictions, but I'm just curious what you guys think for this year. And then obviously, you got Murray for a long time coming now. I mean, what does the next 5 years look like for this team? Because you expect to be there every year going forward to pay a guy this much. Now you're expecting, just like the Chiefs, to be in your championship game coming up pretty much every year. That should be the expectation.
What I think this is going to be a team that every single year they'll say, well, this team could potentially make a run, but I don't think we'll make a run. I know this team. I love this team. I know they did let me down. So I expect nothing really.
Yeah, the homer in me will say the next 5 years we'll get a Super Bowl, we'll do it, but we have been miserable our whole lives. Me a little bit longer than Will, and I've had my heart ripped out by this team. So I set the bar very low.
So Craig Coger kind of adds, he's a contributor to my show. He's like, I'm a little worried for this team. I think they could be a team that made it to the playoffs last year and miss it this year. So Will, I mean, that's kind of what you think might happen, right?
So it all depends on how it goes down, because I mean I think a lot of last year came down to just bad injury luck. I mean, having both DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt go down. I mean, as soon as J.J. Watt went down, our defense lost a lot of cohesiveness and just overall chemistry. I made an analogy on a podcast last year. The guy I was on with it didn't like the analogy, but I'm going to make it again. I think J.J. Watt last year for the Cardinals was the Chris Paul, in that he is not going to fill up the stat sheet. He's not going to have a visible thing in the box score. But when he is on the field, you see him make an impact, and you know that a play has succeeded because of him or because he was there.
Yeah, his impact is intangible.
Yeah. And the injury, obviously, that's a good comparison just from the injuries alone. So I get that a little bit. I am a big Phoenix Sun fan, so Chris Paul frustrates me just watching him the last couple of years because he ends up choking at the end. But that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Jackie said her heart's been torn out. Have you ever been a Cubs fan? So I mean,
at least you guys finally won a World Series.
That's true.
Now we have
which makes us now the most longest championship drought.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the past 2 generations of my family past me have not witnessed a Cardinals championship. So at least I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on here. Go ahead and give those nice plugs real fast before you guys leave. Ryan, you got any questions? Is your mic working?
Test. Does it work now? I unplugged it.
You're good.
Yes, beautiful. I have one question. I do have one question. I don't know if you guys play fantasy or not, but I'll keep it fantasy oriented since that's my expertise. I have Kyler Murray as my number 2 fantasy quarterback overall this year. I think behind Josh Allen, he's got the highest upside to finish, stat wise with the rushing and everything else. as high as you can get for fantasy purposes.
Is Herbert your 3?
Herbert's actually my 5.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I have I got Mahomes and Russell Wilson above Herbert, and those guys are all very close. But Murray is almost a tier break for me. I've projected him for 20-25 more points than those 3 at least. Yeah. So my question is are you guys? I know he's missed some time. Are you worried about the health issues, or now that he's got the contract, maybe he's going to start pushing through? I'm not saying he doesn't push through injury, but if he has something a little nagging here and there, they're going to kind of make sure that he's on the field more often.
I don't know. I think he tends to play scared after he gets those little injury scares. Like last 2 years, you have those injury scares, and then he just kind of his production falls off a little bit. I would like it if they ease him back into it more if he does get injured, but I'd get it if they didn't.
Yeah, I think they need to scheme up some things better when he is coming back from injury.
2 years ago, was this the Rams game? They had a 3rd and 18.
Yes.
In the fourth
quarter.
The
last game of the season.
The last game of the season. Playoffs on the line. 3rd and 18. What do they call? They call a quarterback option with injured Kyler Murray.
Yeah, so let's scheme up some things better to protect our guy. Maybe he'll hold up a little bit longer. But, I think with those injuries too, you get injured before your contract and you're worried about not getting paid. So now he's paid. So,
Yeah, that was kind of my fear as well. I'm hoping that now that they've paid him, they're going to take it a little bit more seriously to try and keep him healthy. And not saying they didn't before, but you guys know what I mean. He's the $1 million man, so to speak. Yeah. So you got to make sure that guy is protected. So hopefully they scheme around him a little bit more to protect him, even if that takes his rushing upside down just a titch.
I'm praying so, man. I think this team has a lot of potential. It just all comes down to, can Cliff scheme his way out of a box?
Can we finish?
Yeah, that's the big one. No, other than that, guys, great stuff. I don't got any more questions for you.
All right.
Hey, well, thank you guys for having us.
Get those plugs in real fast, you guys, and we appreciate y'all coming.
My name is Will. You can find me on Twitter @LiveOnThatSwing, and me and Jackie are on a podcast with our friend Mac called the Redbird Red Zone. It'd be a pleasure if you listen to us. As always, it is great for you to have us. Love being here, man.
And I'm Jackie. Guys. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Go ahead, Jackie. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I'm Jackie. You can find me on Twitter @JSanDiego, on the Redbird Red Zone podcast. We're on Spotify and YouTube. And then I will be joining Dan and Let's Talk Sports coming up on Friday.
Sweet.
Nice. Welcome to the community, Jackie.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, we appreciate you guys having us, coming on the Buffoon and Bodkins show. If you guys ever want to reach out, make sure everybody give them a nice follow on their Twitter, subscribe to their podcast. And it looks like Jackie's about to be kind of becoming a member here of the Let's Talk Sports community. So we'll be hopefully seeing her around a little bit more.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Thanks you guys.
No
right,
problem.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us. Have a good night.
All right, boys. I have waited all day for this because me and Mike talked a little bit of fantasy on last week's episode. Mike comes from the I'm not taking any running back strategies, and me and Ryan have gone back a little bit back and forth on about every podcast show that he follows. I follow him just to make sure I get my 2 cents in. So I have been scheming up some stuff here. I'm excited for this segment. So we're going to talk a little risers, fallers in the fantasy here. Mike, we'll start with you since you're the resident buffoon here. Give me your first, as camp starting here, who's a guy that's rising up the boards here for you?
Well, it's kind of funny, actually. We just kind of talked about this. And Darrell Williams for the Cardinals is somebody that's on my list, not just because I'm biased from watching him. I just think that he's going to be a guy that when he's on the field, can be used in different ways. And even though it's hard to believe, he's actually got great hands. So for me, replacing Chase Edmonds, I can see him coming in and actually getting more playing time than people realize on that team. Otherwise, if I was just kind of taking a look, you got to look at Baker Mayfield. Now that we know what's going on with him and his career, he's a guy to watch out for if you want to get a decent QB2 on your roster. So those are probably my top 2 risers at the moment. I'm probably omitting a few in my mind right now as I speak, but what do you guys got?
Ryan, go ahead, my friend.
So Tyler Algier of Atlanta, rookie running back, is the one that I've been watching the most. And actually today it was perfect timing for this show and segment because it's already got beat reports are coming out saying that there's a good chance that he leads this backfield, which makes sense, right? Because Cordero Patterson is impressed as we were last season. He's just not a typical running back. Great pass catcher. I would not be surprised if you see some split backfields for the first time in a long time where you've got Algier on one side, Patterson on the other. Patterson's going to go out for the passing route. Algier will take the carry. He's going in the 14th round right now, guys. It's like the RB 50 something. That's a guy it's so hard to find a starting running back past round 8, but you got a guy there that you could take a shot on. I know the offense isn't great, but I love trying to find Tyler Algier. He'll rise up once we get to August. And then the other big one that I want to hit on, it's someone I talk about all the time, but I'll just hit on him again. Chris Olave. I mean, now Michael Thomas, I don't remember if he's on the PUP, NFI, one of the two. He just got put onto it to start camp, and I'm just not optimistic about him looking anything like the old Michael Thomas. Olave, they traded so much to get him. I think Olave has the chance to really break out and be the best rookie wide receiver for fantasy this year over Drake London, Treylon Burks, even those guys. I think he's got the chance to do it. So going in the 10th round, that's money all day, in my opinion.
I do have one more for you guys, actually. For some reason, I forgot about him. Russell Gage was one of my favorite players from a couple of years ago in Atlanta, and really is a super productive slot receiver now with the Buccaneers here in this situation. And Antonio Brown's not coming back, so screw that guy. Russell Gage is going to be a guy that gets a lot of targets on the field, especially we don't always know what kind of injury could happen with Chris Godwin. I mean, he's a guy who's had issues in the past with ACLs and such. There's actually a stat that I found here recently. He actually finished as the WR13 in yards per route run and WR12 in route win rate. So, I mean, obviously when he's getting opportunities, he succeeded. It's just a matter of, Atlanta was not a great situation to be in. Now you got Tom Brady. So that's a guy to watch, and he's rising up the boards right now.
Yeah, so, 9th round right now. Wide receiver 41, such a value. I love that pick.
Yeah.
Landez, CK Landez here. He said fantasy dark horses, which kind of covered. He had a different kind of question. I told him to resend it back in before our stream got cut. He was just wanting to know, is there somebody that gets like picked up like week 12? You know how it is when you pick somebody up off of waivers and then they blow up for you, and that's the kind of helps you win maybe a playoff game or get you to the playoffs. Who's a guy like that you maybe not be drafting right now, but a guy that's like, hey, I'm going to keep my eye on?
I've got a good one. If you want me to go first, Mike.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's a guy that's going undrafted that I actually did an article on for RotoBaller. Number 2 wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, Alec Pierce. I've got him in every single draft so far with my last pick just because I want the shot on the upside. Matt Ryan loves the wide receiver too. I think the split between touchdowns over the past 6 years was 28 to his wide receiver 1 to 38 to his wide receiver 2. He likes to target the guys without the heavy coverage. And Alec Pierce is that field stretching, big play, big body receiver type that he's gonna target in Indianapolis. He's already got rave reviews out of camp. He's going undrafted in virtually every redraft league right now. And if you don't want to take the shot on him early, he's someone that could gain some traction going into the first, second, third month of the season that could really help boost your fantasy team by the end of the year.
Very good.
Who you got?
Yeah, my guy. So whenever I saw his question earlier on, I was kind of like, man, it's a tough one to answer because a lot of it just comes down to injuries. A lot of it comes down to like
it's predictive.
Who's going to be able to like fill a role right away and be successful, because you're relying on an injury most of the time when these guys come out of nowhere and start blowing up. In this situation, it's the same kind of thing. Right now, Cuba Hubbard is the 68th ranked running back in fantasy and ADP for PPR leagues. And to me, I just see that situation. And we talked about this last week, Nick, and I don't trust McCaffrey as a number 2 overall pick, and that's where he's going right now in most leagues. I would much rather spend a low round pick on a Cuba Hubbard and try to get some value out of that guy, because even though he had opportunities last year as a rookie, I mean, I just think that's playing time and maturity he got on the field to be able to come in year 2 and be able to be productive. And if he needs to take over that role, I think he can do it.
Yeah, only thing I'm worried about with Hubbard is Deonta Foreman getting signed there, because Foreman looked really good last year in replacement of Henry. But the thing is Hubbard's the guy from last season. He knows the system. Did they sign him because they wanted to replace Hubbard, or did they sign him because they really want to make sure they got depth if something happened to Hubbard after something happened to McCaffrey? So it's a toss up there. You don't know what to do, but grabbing at least one of them, I think, is a very smart idea.
I gave up on Foreman a few years ago, and I used to like him a lot. When he was going pro, I was a big fan of him. I thought the guy had a great blend of size and speed, even at the time, for even a bigger back. And just the injury concerns, and he missed a whole year. And yeah, he was back last year for a bit, but he's just not a guy I would trust by any means. Especially, I like youth at running backs, especially. Yeah. So I would much rather go for a 24-year-old Hubbard than Foreman, who's been off and on the field throughout his career.
So we talked about some risers. Who's Ryan? Who's a guy give me 3 guys that you got falling that people might have been high on, or you're just their ADP is higher and you're not buying into it.
I absolutely hate that DK Metcalf is going in the 4th round right now, and it's nothing against Metcalf. It's the fact that he's going to have either Geno Smith or Drew Lock throwing to him, and when I'm grabbing him. If I grab 3 running backs and I got to get DK Metcalf in the 4th round as my wide receiver 1, I want absolutely nothing to do with that life. Like that's something I want to stray far away from. So if he continues to fall in ADP, yes, of course I'll take him, because he was going in the 3rd round, back in June, and now he's all the way at the back of the 4th. So people are starting to understand that he's tied to a crappy quarterback situation.
If let's just say, because some teams, our leagues are drafting right now, and it gets to you, would you take him in that 3rd or 4th? No, I mean, possible if they got Jimmy G. Obviously, if they get Jimmy G, does that change anything for you? Or, I mean, are you still maybe taking him now just because they don't have Jimmy G but are being linked to Jimmy G?
I don't like predicting when a quarterback will be traded, so I'm not going to do anything until that trade happens. But if it does, I definitely rise on Metcalf a bit. I'm still probably not going to be nearly as high as the consensus will be. But I would definitely feel a lot more comfortable taking him 4th, 5th round than right now when he's attached to the quarterbacks that he's attached to. And then if you want the value in Seattle, you can go with Tyler Lockett, who's going in like the 10th round. I've seen him go in the 12th round in some leagues that I've drafted so far. And I'm all about that, as a late round guy, but 4th round is just really, really rich for me. I got a couple more. I'll go with Antonio Gibson, like shakily, because I love Gibson as a player, but just that situation is becoming a problem. They obviously want to make it a committee. They don't trust that Gibson's going to be healthy. And when they brought back McKissick from Buffalo, that to me said that even though this guy was a wide receiver in college, they just don't want to involve him as much in the passing game. They like McKissick more for whatever reason. So I think his ceiling is capped. He's got Robinson to deal with, who's going to take carries. It's already basically baked into his price. He's going in the 4th round as well as like the RB20. There's just guys going behind him that I'd rather take the shot on, and I'll take my wide receiver or a good tight end in that round that I like over taking him. And then the last one, I don't mean to crap on this guy because I crapped on him last year, but Chase Claypool, he's going in the 9th round. And that situation to me is one where, yeah, you're not getting hurt if you take Claypool in the 9th round, but guys like Alan Lazard and Russell Gage are going in the same round. And then you got guys like Olave going in a round after him. I'd much rather take the shot on those guys having a breakout season than Claypool getting competition with George Pickens coming in for his role, because that's not Deontay's role. Pickens is going to play the role that Claypool is going to play. And I just don't want any part of that. He could break out and be a top 36 wide receiver, but when there's guys going behind him that I like way more, I'll just leave that one for everybody else to take.
Mike, nice. Who you got falling here?
Well, you kind of stole one of my guys. Claypool was going to be somebody I was going to talk about, but I actually believe not only Claypool but also Pickens. I wouldn't touch either one of those guys. I don't like the situation there in Pittsburgh right now for wide receivers. Same goes for the Houston Texans. Brandon Cooks right now is going, I think, is the WR25 in PPR leagues. And I just think the time's past him. I know he's only 28. Somehow he came into the league at like 20 years old and has just been playing forever, and he's still 28 years old somehow. But I don't like receivers with bad quarterbacks and those combinations. even if you are the only guy on that roster, like it's just bad news. And I just don't like the outcome for guys like that. Otherwise, I mean, obviously you can't touch a guy like Will Fuller. I mean, he's not even a guy, and then anymore, because he was there for a while. Speaking of Texans, he was kind of looked at as the big deep threat, and he was going to be a guy that's going to catch 80 passes and then 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns and blow up. And then the injury concerns as well as the drop, stuff like that. So I don't care where he signs.
No, he's not even on a team.
I don't care where he signs. Don't get excited. Don't think, oh, put him on this team, he'll work out and be good again. It's not going to happen. So I know it's going to happen.
If he goes to, let's say, Green Bay, are you going to pick up Will Fuller for his healthy 4 games? Would that be a flyer that you take? I mean,
I probably would.
It's like Sammy Watkins. I mean,
yeah,
he's only going to be healthy for 4 games. That's why he fits perfect, because we got a bunch of injured guys. I've gone on tangents, plenty of it. So, I mean, is Will Fuller a guy that you would take for 4 games if he goes to? He's only going to go to a contender, I would think.
He would be a worse Marquez Valdes-Scantling in that case. I mean, obviously just a deep threat, but he would be crappier as a deep threat.
Yeah. No, you guys pegged it. And it stinks too, because I'll admit, lots of best ball leagues that I'm in, Will Fuller's my last pick because I just want the shot at the 30-point week if he signs with a team. But last pick in a 20-round draft is literally nothing. So yeah, no, that's definitely I think he's actually being drafted in like the 14th round on ADP from 4for4, which takes all of the platforms and puts him into an ADP. That is still insane to me because he just doesn't have a team, and it's getting real late to sign with a team and actually start to produce.
In 2 weeks, if he signs with a team, people are going to get excited and think he's going to start rising up the boards. I'm here to say, don't get excited. Just keep him where he's at, or take him off your board altogether.
Ahead of the curve.
That way. But I guess I got 2 running backs too. As you guys know, if you listened to me last week, I'm a huge Breece Hall fan, so I think Michael Carter is on the, just not necessarily anything wrong with Michael Carter. He's just not going to be the guy getting as much of a workload as what he might have gotten last year. Because I think that Breece Hall can be an every down back, and Carter fits in better as maybe that third down kind of a back, change of pace kind of guy. And then my other one is Raheem Mostert. At this point in his career, going to Miami and all that, and they just added Chase Edmonds and, of course, Sony Michel. I just think there's too many guys in that room now at this point, and he's not a guy you should be looking at and if there's an injury to happen, then absolutely, he's a guy you could have in mind. But otherwise, there's too many mouths to feed in that offense, and I don't like it for Raheem Mostert at all.
All right, let's play a little game of mine that I like to play. It's called Start, Bench, Cut, and we'll start with the running backs here. I'm gonna give you guys 3 guys that are relatively close to ADP, and you guys kind of tell me who you like here. And we'll even start a little higher up here. Some names here. Start, bench, cut. We're looking at running backs. Leonard Fournette is his overalls. He's running back 12. Aaron Jones at 13 and Saquon Barkley at 14. Who you guys taking? Start, bench, or cut between Saquon, Aaron Jones, and Leonard Fournette?
I'm going to start Aaron Jones right off the bat there. Just obviously, as we talked about with the receiving situation in Green Bay, you're going to be relying on Aaron Jones, not only, handing the ball off to him, but also coming out of the backfield. I could see him getting 60 catches this year if things fall right, especially considering A.J. Dillon is going to be their primary goal line guy. Aaron Jones does everything else between the 20s. I guess for the cut, I'm probably going to go Leonard Fournette here. Just because I think the upside of Barkley, if he plays every game, is just too good. So he would be my bench. But I think the sure bet is Aaron Jones.
I know you're high on Aaron Jones, so go ahead.
Yeah, he's top 5 for me this year. Like, I think he's got top 5 potential. He could literally get 95 targets. I wouldn't be shocked because there's not a lot of targets that Aaron Rodgers trusts in Green Bay right now, and Aaron Jones is one of them. And at the end of last season, we saw it. The transition to Dillon's going to have a couple more carries than Jones in a game, but Jones is going to get 7 to 8 targets. And to me, that in any sort of PPR format just screams value. You said he's going in the 2nd round right now, ADP wise. I mean, gosh, if I can pair him with a 1st round talent, my RB room is set for the entire season, I feel like. So, yeah, definitely we're going to start Aaron Jones. And I agree. You bench Saquon just due to the upside. And then, unfortunately, Lenny's got to get cut, which I don't hate Lenny for fantasy purposes. Just compared to these two, I would rather have them over him.
All right, so now we'll get the middle rounds here, and I almost got 4 guys here, but we'll give you 3 here. Start, bench, cut, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, and or Elijah Mitchell. Who start, bench, cut out of those 3 here?
That's a tough call. I mean, I'm going to start Breece Hall. Just this my guy. I think volume is going to be there for him. Travis Etienne is such an interesting one because we all heard last year coming into the season that we thought he could be a guy to catch a bunch of passes, play in the slot even. And if that's the case and they're still planning on that, then I would love him on my team. Elijah Mitchell, good player. I mean, I think that I would rather take the upside of Etienne just barely. I mean, this is a close call on those other 2. So my number 1's Breece, and then the other 2 can just fight it out for the death.
Nick, you hit me hard here because Etienne and Mitchell are like 2 of my favorite backs to draft. And to know that they're going that close, it's going to suck as I get into August. But I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to start Etienne. I think he's got top 12 potential, especially in that offense, the connection that he's going to have with Trevor Lawrence. They're going to pass the ball a lot. And, they're going to want to get his confidence level up and his completion rate up, especially early on in the season, to make sure that he actually bounces back to what he's supposed to be as a number 1 overall pick. And I think Etienne's going to be heavily involved there. I'm not worried about the James Robinson news today that he's not going to start on the pup and he's going to be fine. Any Achilles injury for a running back is a death knell, and it's going to take time for him to get back into form. Even if he starts the season healthy, I'm not worried he's going to take too much work. I don't want to cut Breece Hall, but I love Elijah Mitchell so much. He, in 11 games last season, was averaging 20 attempts and not just 20 rushing attempts, 20 touches a game. So that includes his rush attempts and his receptions. I think that if he's able to stay healthy in a full season in an offense that is so run heavy, that's going to, really build around Trey Lance. And I mean, having a rushing quarterback unlocks everything for a running back. So I think the upside with Mitchell is top 15. And unfortunately for me, Breece is the cut, but it's not a choice I want to make there. I like Breece Hall for fantasy. It's just, I'm going to bet on the upside of the other 2 right now than a rookie on the Jets that has Michael Carter that might take away more than we know about in terms of workload.
Yeah, I would probably start Etienne and then bench Mitchell and then cut Hall just because I think the 49ers their game plan is to run the ball, and I just think the Jets will be down, and Hall will be able to catch some passes out of the backfield, but I just think that Jags are going to use Etienne a lot out of the backfield. You hear a lot of good things coming out of the camp. They have a professional head coach now. So it won't be just such a clown show down there in Jacksonville.
That does help, having a professional head coach.
Super Bowl winning head coach.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll get one more. We'll go one more running back, and then we'll get into some receivers here. So here's some later round guys. Start Ramondre Stevenson. Start bench cut Ramondre Stevenson, James Cook, and Rojo. Start bench cut out of those 3.
Man, that's a great one right there. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but I'm a huge Ronald Jones fan. Way before he became a Chief, I liked him a lot 2 years ago, and especially because of that average. I mean, he hit 5 yards a carry, which is something to me that I look at when it comes to what are you doing with your touches. And the guy was efficient. Last year, not quite as much. Things for some reason, Fournette just kind of took the ball and ran with it at that point. But that's a tough one. I would have to cut Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm going to probably bench James Cook and then start Ronald Jones out of this combination. But James Cook's also a guy I love in PPR, so I think he has an opportunity right there to really make things happen. If he can stand out, start making us breakaway runs, like his brother does, then I think he could be a really good player for that team.
Yeah, I'm going to start Rojo as well. I think that Rojo, it's not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire problem. To me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't the fix for that offense. I don't think he's exactly what Kansas City wanted when they drafted him. And whether it's injury related or he's just not picking up everything the way that he's supposed to in terms of playbook and stuff like that, I just haven't seen it yet when he's on the field. And I think Rojo in the right situation with a decent offensive line is explosive. He's a terrible pass catcher. So if for fantasy purposes, you got to know that when you start someone like Ronald Jones, you got to hope for touchdowns, but he's in one of the best offenses in football. So touchdowns are going to come. So I'm going to start him. I'm going to bench Ramondre because I think Ramondre's upside with James White out on the pup. I don't even know if James White is ever going to play football again with some of the reports that are coming out of Patriots camp. Ramondre has been taking most of the receiving work in New England, and we all know how much Mac Jones loves to check the ball down. So I think if he's got the receiving upside built into, I think he averaged 11 carries a game last season with Damian Harris. I mean, that's flex territory right there. And if anything happens to Damian Harris, immediate top 24, top 15 back on any given week. And then I'll just cut James Cook because as much as I love him as a receiver, and I think the offense is a good fit for him, Devin Singletary is still alive and he is still going to take the majority of the carries as long as he's looking, at least over 4.3 yards per carry probably. And the Bills had a 15% target share to their running backs last season, lowest in the NFL. It's just, it might not add up the way that we hope it will. So I'll take the sure things with Rojo and Stevenson, and then I'll cut Cook for now.
I'm kind of with you, Ryan. I'd almost start Ramondre just because I've heard a lot of good things of coming out of camp for the Patriots, that he'll probably be the number one guy almost eventually later on in the season, and that they're very high on him, especially out of the backfield and even, almost an every down back type thing. So I'd almost start him, and then I'd go with Rojo, especially because I think he's going to get the goal line work, and then cut Cook here. All right, so let's move over to some receivers here. Let's just say hypothetically, boys, you guys, I know Mike's not taking a running back in the first round, but let's just say he accidentally falls into one that he does. So who are we taking here? Start, bench, cut. Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen.
I like this one. So you're going to get consistency from Mike Evans. So you know what you're going to get. You're going to get, 1,000 yards. You're probably going to get somewhere around 10 touchdowns, probably 70 catches. I think that Tyreek probably gives you more upside, though, even in the new offense. And because the guy is still, let's not forget, like he wasn't just made by Patrick Mahomes. He was doing great things with Alex Smith, too. And Tyreek Hill is a just special player and still the fastest man in the league, in my opinion, or at least, close to it. So I think on that one, I'd probably take Tyreek Hill to start there. Who was the other one after Mike Evans, you said?
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, okay. I like Keenan Allen. I just like, I think, more of the touchdown shares for Mike Evans more. So for me, it would just be start Tyreek. I would bench Mike Evans, and Keenan Allen has to go just because he's not getting the touchdowns that I would expect, because that's all going to Mike Williams for some reason.
Yeah, so I'll flop here. I will start Mike Evans and bench Tyreek, and unfortunately, Allen is left off the list for the reasons that you named. The touchdowns just aren't going to be there as often. They never have for his career. Great PPR guy, but just the upside's not there. I think that Evans' potential, especially if Chris Godwin starts, on the pup, which I think is a very good possibility. I know there was a report today that there was some optimism around him being able to start the season, but let's be realistic. Even if he starts the season, he's not playing at 100%, and he's probably only playing, 20, 30 snaps the first month of football. So as much as we love Russell Gage as like a sleeper, Gronk isn't there anymore. And I know they signed Kyle Rudolph, and they got Cameron Brate and rookie Cade Otton, but those guys don't make Gronkowski. And I think that touchdowns are just going to be a plenty for Mike Evans, especially at the beginning of the season. If Godwin was out, that could take him over the top. He could have one of those seasons where we look back and he's, inside the top 5 at fantasy or for fantasy wide receivers and be like, well, that makes a lot of sense because he was the only show and tell, quote unquote, for Brady when it comes to red zone targets. So I'll start Evans because I think he has a little bit higher upside than we give him credit for, knowing how consistent he is. I'll put Tyreek on the bench just because I'll let things kind of mill over with his new offense and his most accurate quarterback of all time with him. And I'll cut Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I would probably go with I I'd probably go start Hill here, and then Mike Evans, and then cut Keenan Allen on that. But just, I mean, you guys kind of summed it up. All right, let's get into the your kind of wide receiver 2 situation here. I like to call this "we're really good, but my quarterback sucks" group. Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, and Brandon Cooks. Start, bench, cut here out of those 3.
Yeah, right away. I just talked about this with Brandon Cooks, and he's got to go. I'm going to take him just off my list in general. I mean, I would guess I would take him if he was my WR5 or something like that. But I don't really want to mess with him or deal with the inconsistencies you're going to see in any receiver that deals with a bad quarterback. But I do like Terry McLaurin. With that said, I think the guy is a consistent player and the most reliable threat on that team, really. So he's my guy that I would start. And DJ Moore, I like DJ Moore a lot. I mean, if you look at some of the analytics of DJ Moore, I mean, it's kind of crazy that he's not more in the top 10 of receivers. And a lot of that does come back to quarterback play. That's going to be an interesting fit. We don't know what that's going to look like yet with Baker Mayfield. I obviously assume it's going to be better than it has in the past for DJ Moore. But I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin to start, bench DJ Moore, and definitely cut Cooks.
Yeah, I'm going to start DJ Moore because of the things that you just said. Like, when you look back at what Moore has been able to do with some of the absolute dog crap quarterback play that there's been in the NFL, now he's got Baker Mayfield, which I understand that a lot of people aren't going to see that as like a massive upgrade. But compared to what he's been playing with, I think Baker is a massive upgrade, especially when healthy. We all know what Baker was last year when he was hurt. I think when healthy, Baker is going to be just fine. He's just got to pass that 4 touchdown threshold. That's what's held him back every year for fantasy is 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns under that mark. And I think he's going to hit that this year. So I'll start him. I will bench Cooks. And I know that's probably a hot take, but I know that you don't like pairing the bad quarterback with the wide receiver, but I mean, last season he had such a high percentage of target share in that offense, and John Mechie just, unfortunately announced that he has cancer, and now they have no one else on that roster, literally nobody else. It's Nico Collins, who I have no faith in, and a bare bones running back room. So he could have 170 targets by the end of the season for all we know, and at the end of the day, that's just going to equate to fantasy value. So very slightly edging out Terry McLaurin, who I'm betting against my former quarterback here, but it's like this close between Cooks and McLaurin, but I think I'll get a little bit more consistency out of Cooks because of the high target share.
All right, we'll get one more later in the rounds here. Are you guys taking start, bench, cut Allen Lazard, Kadarius Tony, and we'll say a Jarvis Landry?
That's a tough one right there. I think I'm going to absolutely go Lazard first to start here. I think it makes the most sense here. Kadarius Tony is a really special player on the field. I don't know what's going to happen with him off the field if he can keep his head on straight and stay out of trouble and not get in fights on the field and things like that. Like, I don't know what he's going to become in this league, if he can handle himself or not. Jarvis Landry, it's kind of gross. Like, I don't like anything about the guy as a player. I mean, I don't like anything about him. He's not going to get you, he's not the guy he was his first few years in the league when he was catching 100 passes every year. And he's slow. I mean, you might get 4 touchdowns out of him if you're lucky. I think on this case, I'm going to go bench Tony just because he does have great athletic ability. And if he does play every game this year, he's going to get a lot of reps just because he's playing, on a rough team. So we saw glimpses of him last year, obviously blow up and stand out, and that was awesome. I just hope we can see more of that this whole year and keep the head on straight. And I still like Lazard, though, the most just because he makes the most sense. He's going to go out there, probably catch around 80 passes maybe. Could be over-exaggerated, but
I think Bodkins set this up so we would put Lazard on a pedestal for the starts.
Right. I mean,
I definitely agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. Lazard's the start. Most rock solid out of all 3 of them. Not that Landry isn't anything but consistent, but he's also boring when it comes to fantasy. So you take Lazard for the upside and the touchdowns. And I definitely bench Kadarius Tony. I don't have anything personally against Lazard going like in the 10th round or later, because I think at that point, if you've got a volatile wide receiver room for your fantasy team, having some steady production is a good thing that late. But I like to take shots on guys that have blow up potential in later rounds of drafts. And that's exactly what Kadarius Tony is. He's just got to be on the field for it to happen. So I'll take the shot at Tony to hope that, he actually stays on the field and starts to show more of that potential that he showed in his rookie season. I'll bench him, play Lazard, and then I'll cut Landry.
Well, I didn't really do that for the Packer-esque reasons. I'm actually probably starting Kadarius Tony because for the simple reason that you said, Ryan, he's just got all the potential in the world. Alan Lazard can't ever stay healthy. Now, I mean, he can't stay healthy or can't stay on the field either, but I think his ceiling is way higher than Alan Lazard's is by far. Jarvis is just, if you need that consistency guy, you need somebody. He is very consistent. It's not flashy, it's not great, but it's consistent at least, and you can somewhat live with that if you need to, if you're in a pinch,
Mark it down. Bodkins chose Daniel Jones over Aaron Rodgers right there. Just mark that down.
We'll do one more here on the quarterbacks here, and then we'll wrap up for the evening, boys. Once my computer decides it's gonna load the ADPs here for quarterbacks. All right, so I believe we're all on the let's wait till the very last chance we can to get a quarterback. So who are we taking here? Let's just go ahead and kind of guys that got something to prove. These are the late round quarterbacks. Start, bench, cut. Trey Lance, Tua, and we'll say Trevor Lawrence. I almost went Justin Fields. So if you want to say Justin Fields, go ahead. But all guys that kind of got a little something more to prove here. Guys that are going to be starting that back end. I mean.
Yeah, it looks like Tua.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, you're already talking.
Gotcha. Okay. It looks like Tua here is ranked as the QB 16 on my list, putting him 2 spots behind Trey Lance. But I like Tua much more than Trey Lance right now. I know we talked about this the other day, and Lance reminds me a little bit of what we saw or what I thought of Jalen Hurts going into last year. And I ended up being wrong about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts ended up being a much better player than I expected him to be, and ended up finishing. I think he finished right around 10th last year in almost all leagues. But Lance has that kind of upside to put up numbers like that just due to that rushing ability. The passing thing, I don't see it yet. I think there's a lot to be proven so far with that. I just like Tua quite a bit more in general. I think there's just a lot more weapons to work with, and it's going to be hard for him to fail. They've built this offense now between the plethora of running backs and then the receivers. And they've even got Cedric Wilson from the Cowboys. It's like, man, this team is, you can't really fail. I mean, you have a young tight end still that's on the rise, and I just like Tua a lot. I think that people underestimate what his potential is because we like to make fun of him for throwing a wobbly pass to Tyreek Hill in a highlight video on Twitter, and it's like, all right, maybe he won't be throwing as many bombs, but I can trust him anything, under 20 yards at least. So anyways, I take Tua as my start right there. And then I will definitely bench Trey Lance just because I like the rushing ability. I think that there's going to be some upside there, especially if they can get that offense to work around and just start getting things gelling for what works for him. And then after that, Trevor Lawrence, just I'm not touching Justin Fields just because the team is awful. And I think that's going to be a failure. The offensive line sucks, and it's just not going to be good for him. And I feel bad for him because you hate seeing a guy go to a team where you have no chance. And that's what Justin Fields is to me. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, I think we're going to see a big step up in year 2. I just don't know if I trust it yet. So for me, I would cut him just because I feel comfortable with Tua as my start, and I like the upside of Trey Lance.
Yeah, as much as I love Lance and am very comfortable leaving the draft if he is my starting quarterback, I would take Tua over him for a lot of the reasons that Mike said. And I think it's going to come down to consistency. Lance is going to struggle at times, and it might happen early on. So when you're drafting a quarterback, you don't want to be playing the streamer game, those first couple of weeks at the very least. So I'm going to go with Tua to start. I will bench Lance for all of the upside and, potential top 5 weeks that he's going to have because of his rushing ability. And, once he picks everything up at the NFL speed level, I think he's going to be perfectly fine and maybe even a breakout player towards the end of the season. Like we talked about earlier, those dark horse guys that come on really late in the season. He could be a league winner if, it all clicks. And unfortunately, that means I have to cut Trevor Lawrence. But I will say, I put out a tweet earlier this week that asked, like, what was the last quarterback at the latest value that you were comfortable drafting and leaving the draft with as your starting quarterback? And I think that Lawrence is kind of like my cutoff line. As much as Fields is like, he has the upside because of the rushing, it's a lot like Mike said, good Lord, that team is awful. And I want absolutely nothing to do with it because they just don't support him the way that he needed to be supported. They are tanking, in my opinion, and they're going to try and build up next year. And unfortunately, Fields is just the sacrificial lamb at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys on that. I think Tua just has all the weapons. I mean, you look at the weapons that he has compared to everybody else. The 49ers are going to run and play action where, I mean, really, I guess the Dolphins could do that because their new head coach is the old OC of the 49ers. So we'll see similar play styles, but I just like the offensive weapons for the Dolphins. So I think, hey, boys, it's been another great show. So, Ryan, go ahead and get them plugs in. Where can everybody follow you at and all your fantasy knowledge that you'll have to say that you lost to me in our league? So it'll be all right.
You're taking N'Keal Harry first overall, right? That's
yes,
his draft strategy.
Third overall pick, N'Keal Harry.
Perfect. So you're going to win that league without any problems, Nick. Don't you worry about it. Yeah, guys, if you want to see all the stuff that I release across Fantasy Football for the People, Wag Me Fantasy, and Rotoballer, follow my Twitter handle. It's at the bottom of the screen at FFTP. Basically, anytime I post anything on any of those websites, it will be shared through my Twitter account, my Facebook account, which is just Fantasy Football for the People. I'm on Fantasy Life as well. If you guys are on that, which that app is dying, unfortunately, but if you guys are on that, I'm on there as well. I'll release all my stuff there. And we are getting very close to that 100 subscriber mark to the newsletter on Wag Me Fantasy. That's where I release all my exclusive content, like my one potential fantasy gem on each NFL team, late round or undrafted guys that you should be either looking at to draft with one of your last few picks, or maybe watching as the season starts that you need to target on the waiver wire. That whole series is done. Every single NFL team is done. That's over on wagmefantasy.com right now. And we got some great stuff coming out within the next couple of weeks. An entire RB handcuff guide, QB wide receiver stack article on affordable ones, not just trying to go for the ones that are going to cost you a first and a fourth round pick. If you like that kind of draft strategy, and just everything else, Colin, the guy that I work with, has his entire projected rankings on there as well. So there's tons of stuff to look at over there. And we want to hit that 100 subscriber mark before the start of the NFL season. So if you sign up for that letter or newsletter, it's completely free. Just click the confirmation email once it hits your inbox, and you'll be all set.
Mike, what do you guys got going on Wednesday on the Buffoons?
Yeah, Wednesday, man. We are in the middle of our NFL preview series where we're going down division by division, spending most of the hour on breaking down each team, having some of you guys on, of course, along the way. So that's super exciting. But otherwise, I mean, we hit on fantasy all the time as well. And we'll normally spend a few minutes here and there on just talk about Chiefs too for a while. So anyways, I'm looking forward to just kind of going through the weeks leading up to the regular season. And that's the plan. We're going to end. Let's see, our last Wednesday is like the Wednesday before kickoff on the Thursday. So that way we get all the divisions in, get our predictions in. And last year we did pretty good last year, most of our predictions. So if you follow us on TikTok and all that kind of stuff, we'll do some funny predictions on there every once in a while. So Tanner's the one that gets all that set up for us.
All right. And over on the Bodkins show, we always have our Wednesday morning weekly Bodkins wrap-up show, get you everything caught up on the week that was in sports for anybody that's just too busy and missed it. Also, if you missed it this past weekend, we did our UFC pre and post show on the UFC London card. We're debuting a new show this Saturday and Sunday. It's called Head Kicks and Haymakers. That'll be able to see right here on the Bodkins Show Network as well, and Let's Talk Sports Network. It'll be our strictly UFC show. We'll be talking UFC 279. Also do a late Sunday night show with some guests. We have a guest I'm trying to get confirmed for this Sunday night. So a lot of things are happening on the Bodkins Network. Always make sure you like and subscribe. The Bodkins Network, Sports Buffoons, the Let's Talk Sports, if you're watching on there as well. Dan's doing incredible stuff. He's always got Ryan on to answer every fantasy question you could think of possible. So always put Ryan in the hot seat. Ask the best questions you can and the hardest questions you can when Ryan's on there. Again, comment, like, subscribe, share, follow us all on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I always say Apple iTunes or whatever it is, but that died. So again, folks, this has been great, boys. Mike, thanks for filling in for Tanner with even the technical difficulty. I know we'll be seeing you around. Ryan, I'll be kicking your ass a little bit in fantasy here. I can't wait. All right, boys.
I hope I have you week 1, Nick. I hope I have you week 1.
All right. We're hitting the outro, folks. Like, subscribe, share. See ya.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Buffoons and Bodkins Show. Make sure you hit that bell, subscribe, and follow. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh, show. I'm just hitting the broadcast.